On July 30th, 2008, passengers boarded Greyhound bus 1170 expecting nothing more than an ordinary overnight trip across Canada. Among the passengers were 22-year-old Tim McLean, who had been working with a traveling carnival and was heading home, and 40-year-old Vince Lee, who had boarded the bus earlier that day. According to witnesses, Lee appeared completely ordinary throughout most of the journey.
I looked like, did you get a look at him?
The killer?
Yeah.
He's either Chinese or native. 6 feet, 200 pounds, he's wearing sunglasses, bald head. He looked totally calm. He didn't say a word, I don't think, to anybody on the bus. I think he got out and had a cigarette with one girl. Nothing, just totally calm.
Nothing about his behavior suggested that he was about to commit one of the most shocking crimes in Canadian history. During a stop in Erickson, Manitoba, instead of returning to his original seat near the front, he walked to the back of the bus and sat beside Tim McLean. McLean was wearing headphones and had fallen asleep against the window. Roughly half an hour later, without any warning or confrontation, Lee suddenly attacked McLean with a large knife.
All of a sudden I heard a guy screaming. I turned around and the guy sitting right next beside me was standing up and stabbing another guy with a Rambo knife, pretty much. It was a big survival knife like this in the throat, repeatedly.
Passengers were caught completely off guard.
Told everybody to get off the bus. Everybody started to get off the bus.
Passengers fled in panic while several called 911. A few of the male passengers attempted to intervene.
Me and a trucker that had stopped and the Greyhound driver ran up to the door to maybe see if the guy was still alive or we could help or something like that. And when we all got up, we seen that the guy was cutting off the guy's head. He was cutting off the guy's head there. And he saw us. He came back to the front of the bus, told the driver to shut the door. He pressed the button and the door shut, but it didn't shut in time. And the guy was able to get his knife out and take a swipe at us. So we backed off the door. And I ran around the backside of the bus driver took off, and then we both returned to the front to see what had happened, and he hadn't gotten off the bus. The door was still open. We shut the bus door that time and shut it. It was at that point that he came, he started walking to the front of the bus with the head in his hand, and he just looked at us like this and dropped it on the ground, like, totally calm.
Because he remained dangerous and officers believed rushing the bus could lead to additional deaths, they established a perimeter and attempted to negotiate with him. The standoff continued for several hours. Police repeatedly ordered Lee to surrender, but he ignored their commands. Officers waited for an opportunity to arrest him safely while tactical units secured the area and prevented him from escaping. Lee attempted to climb out of a bus window. As soon as he exited, RCMP officers moved in, deployed a taser, and took him into custody without further violence. The investigation quickly established that the attack had been entirely random. Tim McLean and Vince Lee had never met before boarding the bus. There had been no argument, no prior interaction, and no apparent motive. Detectives found no evidence that McLean had done anything to provoke the attack. As investigators examined Lee's background, they learned he had been suffering from untreated schizophrenia.
Lee was in a state of psychosis, under the bizarre belief that Tim McLean was an alien and that the entire bus was in immediate danger. He explained how he was convinced that in that moment, it was his absolute sworn duty to kill McLean. Following a lengthy public trial, Lee was deemed not criminally responsible due to insanity and was put into an institution for a number of years.
In February 2006, a quiet home in the residential neighborhood of Scarborough, just outside Toronto, became the scene of one of the most gruesome murders ever seen, according to police. Stephen Huck Min Chow had been living in a basement apartment with his wife, Xiao Shang Liang, and 2 children, 3-year-old Vivian and 5-month-old Ian. Stephen had been diagnosed with depression and paranoid schizophrenia, of which he had been prescribed antipsychotics and attending regular sessions with a psychiatrist. Relatives claimed that Stephen had stopped taking his medications and was having hallucinations, and his behavior was becoming more bizarre at home. His wife pleaded with his psychiatrist to have him institutionalized. She explained how Stephen was convinced that their 5-month-old son was possessed by evil dog spirits, obsessing over a birthmark on the child's face. He would boil hot water continuously to ward off evil spirits and that he was becoming more violent. She begged for help, but the psychiatrist was unconvinced by her testimony. He believed Stephen to be doing well, citing the seemingly positive sessions he's held with him. He ignored her requests until one day, in a state of psychosis, he locked his family in the house, grabbed a meat cleaver, and began to butcher his wife. He then went to the bedroom that Vivian had been hiding in and murdered her, until finally moving on to baby Ian, dealing an exceptional amount of damage to under the belief that he was a demon. Residents upstairs heard screams and called police. When police arrived, they found Stephen sitting amongst the gruesome scene and was arrested without struggle. He was eventually deemed not criminally responsible due to insanity. Following his arrest, the psychiatrist faced intense scrutiny, with headlines of his scandal promoting investigations into his handling of his patient, and whether he should face charges for his negligence in the matter leading up to the murders. Despite this, today, the psychiatrist still practices in his Scarborough clinic treating patients with the same condition. On August 3, 2008, Toronto police responded to what initially appeared to be a medical emergency at an apartment building at 105 West Lodge Avenue in Parkdale. A 911 caller reported that a 7-year-old girl had choked on food and was unconscious. But when paramedics arrived, it became immediately clear that something was terribly wrong. The child, Caitlin Sampson, was covered in injuries that could not be explained by an accident. She was pronounced dead at the scene. City News Toronto, 1. As homicide detectives entered the apartment, they quickly realized they were investigating far more than a suspicious death. Caitlin's body showed signs of prolonged physical abuse. Investigators would later determine she had suffered repeated beatings over an extended period before her death. The injuries covered nearly her entire body, suggesting that the violence had not been a single outburst, but an ongoing pattern of abuse. City News Toronto, 1. Caitlin had been living in the apartment with Donna Irving, a family friend who had become her legal guardian several months earlier while Caitlin's biological mother dealt with personal difficulties. Although Irving was not a licensed foster parent, she had been entrusted with Caitlin's care. Irving lived in the apartment with her boyfriend, Warren Johnson. There was blood found in every room of the apartment. The extent of her injuries were so severe, even the medical examiners who performed the autopsy were in shock, stating, "In all my years of experience, I've never heard of such phenomena." Her body was found badly bruised, with multiple broken bones, a black eye, and a significant amount of blood pooling in her lower back. She was also struck so hard that her liver ruptured. Caitlin Sampson's autopsy showed a piece of the organ had completely detached and migrated to her pelvic area, the forensic pathologist who examined her body said. "I've only ever heard of this in cases of fatal car crashes," he said. A notebook was also found in the apartment with what is believed to be Caitlin's writing. In it, the sentence, "I am a very bad girl," was repeated nearly 100 times over. By the time they officially became Caitlin's guardians in June 2008, the girl had missed months of class and her school had called Children's Aid 3 times, the inquest heard. Irving and Johnson pleaded guilty 3 years ago of second-degree murder in the girl's death and were sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 15 years. Caitlin's portrait is displayed on the front of the elementary school she attended, just a few feet away from her apartment, in memory of her short life.